Hello and welcome to the show. I am here on Forza 6 with another autocross car build. My vehicle today is the Subaru SVX, a car that I'm a little scared about building, an autocross version of this. See, I ran one of these in versus the community, and it was very, very understeery. Admittedly, that was built to be a heavyweight car, but I'm kind of slightly scared this might be a bit awkward to drive around the autocross course. I might be wrong. It could be very fast. Being four-wheel drive, of course, can certainly help with the traction and so on. So, the car is to go up to A class. We will come back to engines later on, as I don't know how much PI I'm going to have to play around with on this car. The weight for the heavyweights that this ran in, it had to get up to 4,000 pounds. As you can see, it starts off at 3,000, it's about 3,600. So, yeah, it did take some fiddling around with parts to get it up to weight. Tyre widths, I'm guessing we're going to be 245s all around, which is not exactly the largest, but it is the same size as we had in the Sunbeam that went out last time. So I'm hoping with the four-wheel drive and so on, we shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, understeer is a slight fear for this car. We will of course be getting as much of the racing parts on here as we can. And hopefully we can get the weight down. This will be built to be as light as I possibly can, if we could get the anti-roll bars installed. Although I will be having a roll cage. Again, any handling that I can get out of the vehicle is going to be important for autocross. We can get the weight down to 3,000 pounds, and hopefully we can shave another 100, 150, maybe even 200 off with maybe with an engine swap or with some of the engine parts. Right, so let's have a look. And we've got Gearbox and so on to come as well. Engines, 2.5 litre flat 4, 5.7 litre V8, or the 3 litre flat 6. I'm actually surprised. I'm kind of expecting the Turbo Rally to be an option on this one. It is not. So, what do we go for? 3 litre flat 6 is kind of tempting. The V8, you can't really go wrong with the V8, but I think I may possibly go with the 2.5 litre. It is a slightly lighter engine, which I think will be good. I think we're going to go. With this one. It's a couple of £100 lighter than the other two, so yeah, we will take a 2.5 litre flat 4. I've gone for a turbo with this. I just realised after I bought it, but I think we should probably be okay with that. Fingers crossed. Of course, exhaust, always the first thing that to upgrade with the engine. Saves a huge amount of weight, and I will do air filter as well. Again, weight saving. Right, let's go put this on. The gearbox will be very important because the standard gearbox in this car is arse. It's terrible 4 gears. They're really bad ratios as well. So, yeah, we're not going to be having the standard gearbox and so on. All of that has got to change. We will get the driveline on and, of course, put the diff in. I fear that this may be a tad underpowered for this, as well. By the looks of it, we're not even going to get 400 horsepower in this car. In fact, it very much looks like we're not going to get 400 horsepower. We're not even going to get massively close to 400 horsepower in this. And it is heavy. 2,800 pounds is very heavy for an autocross car here. So, I think we're going to put in the valves, and then we will get a flywheel. Maybe not. Okay, screw that. I was going to put the valves. That can go back to there. We'll take the piston that we were looking at. 367 horsepower, 350 foot-pounds of torque. It is heavy. Four-wheel drive traction could be quite useful for making up some of that time lost. Power-to-weight ratio, though, is not particularly high in this. I fear we may struggle. I have thought that about cars before and have been completely wrong. But, it should be an interesting one, at least, to see how this Subaru does. Of course, to find out, I am taking the SVX to the Hockenheim circuit, where it will get 3 runs through the autocross course. Our current fastest car and target time is a 2:05.5 set by the Chevrolet Corvette. A very, very fast time indeed. The quickest four-wheel drive car is the Jeep Wagoneer, amusingly, with a 2:06.9. So this has got, some serious targets if it wants to get near them. I don't think we're going to have the speed, the acceleration, or probably the grip of the Corvette in this SVX. It could go quite well. We could maybe see it challenge the Wagoneer or the Escort Cosworth. I don't know. If we don't have terrible understeer, we could do okay. But I do kind of fear we might have awful understeer. Okay. Well, this is very peculiar handling. Okay, we don't have awful understeer as such. The back end does not really feel like it's fully connected to the front end, so that's a thing that we will have to deal with. Yeah, the back end is quite lively, relatively quick car though. It's impressing me with its speed. It feels like one of the more bizarre cars I've driven through this course, with the exception of the likes of the Hummer and the limo that have been very, very silly for autocross. This feels peculiar. It doesn't necessarily feel slow as such. It actually is changing direction pretty well. And the acceleration isn't too bad, and this will be the test of it. How fast can it go down here? Yeah, it's a couple of miles an hour down, perhaps, on the quicker vehicles. And the other problem we're going to have is there is just more mass to be getting stopped. And while the brakes are not bad on here, it's not going to be able to brake as late. I mean, it's 1,000 pounds heavier than the likes of the Beetle and so on, so it's just not going to be able to get stopped as well as cars like that. I'm playing it quite brave with the cones around there. There's a little bit of understeer through that transition. I mean, we're all right being flat out through here. I think on cold tyres there's definitely some weirdness in the rear of the car. It's now much better behaved as we've gone around the course of this lap. The back end has stopped kind of being different from being very different from the front. Oh, get that turned in and then avoid the gates through here. I've definitely, the car's grown on me a bit more as we've gone around the lap, but I tried my luck a little bit down there. I think we are just lacking some of that punch out of the corners really with this. We just don't have acceleration is okay, but it is just okay. Oh, I didn't even think I touched that one. It's nothing particularly special. It was a couple of gates clipped. A 10-second time penalty is still not massively fast from the SVX. Have to see if we can find some time next attempt. On to the second run for the Subaru. I am now aware of its behaviour on the cold tyres. We might not have a huge amount of grip for the first couple of corners, and then after that I think we just struggle with not really enough power. Power to weight ratio is just too low, I think, with this car. And while four-wheel drive, yes, it is good for traction and so on, it just doesn't really quite work for this particular challenge, because things like the Corvette, far lighter, more power, and you could boot it flat out of every corner anyway. Didn't need four-wheel drive, so the four-wheel drive benefit I don't think is really quite working with this car. And I managed to turn in a fraction too soon and clip a gate through there. It's not quite ideal. I think the splitter at the front is a little bit catching on some of these gates. Alright, we all run flat out down there. It's not a problem getting it flat out, it's just not particularly quick. We're a few miles an hour down and kind of out of these corners as well. I just don't think it can get it hasn't got the power to put down on the road. It can get the power it has down on the road fine, but there's just not enough of it really to get out of these corners quick enough. It changes direction relatively nicely at the slow speeds as well. I think we're probably going to want first gear. Out of there's a tiny bit of understeer, but certainly nothing too bad, and a hell of a lot better than my heavyweight B-Class one as we come up towards this corner. By now the rear tyres have sorted themselves out. It does feel significantly better. It's just, I think, we're lacking some speed from this car as we tip it in to the hairpin. Let the understeer drag it slightly wide. That's the ticket through there. But even with the 5-second time penalty, we're still quite a long way down on perhaps where we want to be, or with the car coming through this final section. Definitely happier with this run, finding ways of getting some speed out of the car. Doesn't quite want to be in first through here. There we go. We're out of that section. The run towards the line is better. Better that time out, certainly. One slight clipped gate, but it's still, I think, very much a slightly underpowered car. On to the final attempt for the Subaru. I've got to not make any silly mistakes with the car. Don't turn in too soon to the corners. Don't want to be knocking over any barrels. It is surprisingly easy, especially with sort of four-wheel drive cars that you think may slightly understeer, to kind of turn in a little early to almost compensate for the understeer, and then you realise they actually have grip, and then you're kind of slightly screwed. So let's not be doing any of that on this run. Hopefully get a half-decent time for the car. It's actually pretty quick through here. 103, 105-ish miles an hour through that section is not too shabby, in all honesty. I thought we might be struggling with kind of getting the acceleration down towards that corner. It's okay, it's not as fast as the Beetle, but then nothing else really has gone. So yeah, it's holding its own through some parts, but other parts of the course it certainly struggles that little bit more. We don't have, even with great line through here, we just don't have the acceleration. It's 5 miles an hour down on the Opel Kadett and so on, and the brakes aren't particularly good. It's just that bit heavier than a lot of the cars that have gone quickly around here. It's just slightly too heavy and slightly underpowered. A little bit of a shame with this car. I think the PI is perhaps a little unfortunate with the four-wheel drive system on here. Yes, it's all very well and good having four-wheel drive, and that can be very useful for traction. But when you got 300 horsepower or 360 or whatever in this, the other cars haven't had problems with traction, and they've been rear-wheel drive, and they've not had they've not needed the four-wheel drive. So I think the PI may have been slightly cruel to the Subaru. It is just underpowered, basically, for this, and traction hasn't been a big problem certainly for the fastest cars anyway. They haven't had traction issues around this circuit as we come up towards these final corners now. Well, we're on for a okay run with this car, if I can keep it neat and tidy through here. Let's not make any silly mistakes. I mean, it feels like it changes direction quite well through here, although I was a little bit out of shape on that run. It's okay. 209.2 from the car. It's underpowered and a little bit too heavy for the Autocross. Really, it did better than I thought. I thought we might have more problems with this car, with it being understeery and so on. Definitely a damn sight better to drive than the one that I had for the heavyweights. But for the Autocross, yeah, I think perhaps slightly punished with the PI system, thanks to the four-wheel drive. Is my best guess, really, with this car. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, power to weight ratio probably the poorest we've seen with just about any car that has gone. So the only conclusion I can come to that is, the four-wheel drive system is kind of bumping the PI up some in this, and yeah, we can't really get enough power in it to compensate. The 209 it puts it into 23rd place. It's not too bad a time. It's certainly not an awful car to drive around here. It goes slightly slower than the GMC Cyclone. It does beat the Ford Deluxe. It beats the Cooper Works Mini and a Tesla Model S, and so on. So yeah, it's an okay time. It's just underpowered. Pretty much, and yeah, it's not a horrible car to drive. The cold tyres is a little scary, certainly on that first run, getting caught out by it suddenly wanting to be going sideways. But once you've got the tyres warmed up about halfway around the lap, then it's quite well balanced. In all honesty, a little bit of understeer, but certainly nothing terrible from this car. Just doesn't quite work for the Autocross. Just can't quite keep up with the much lighter, much more powerful cars. And yeah, without the four-wheel drive, they still have more than enough traction to deal with the course. So there you go. That is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.